So, Michelle.
So, David.
Right. How would you feel if your landlord just booted you out? Just booted you out?
I feel like it's very on brand for someone my age. Get kicked out all the time.
Yes, as an owner-occupier, I don't have that problem. But there has been a massive problem with a lease.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Russians have been booted out of their new premises.
Which is great.
The new land that was meant to have their premises on it by now.
Right.
And, you know, it's this big thing about how the Russian embassy, the new Russian embassy that was meant to be built in Canberra, ain't going to be built no more because the National Development Corporation, or whatever it's called, basically went, yeah, use it or lose it, we're sick of you, get out. The thing is, there is so much exciting stuff around embassies and what goes on and when they're being built that I thought...
Exciting stuff around embassies?
Yeah, okay.
Did you listen to yourself when you said that?
I live in a blanket fort, all right?
Okay, well, to make it a little bit more exciting, I want to touch on something as well, but mine's going to be assassination.
Oh, juicy. I'm in. Let's go.
Okay. You're listening to I Spied, the landlord of Australian intelligence.
Yeah, look, mate, I don't know. You know, there's a lot of blue tack behind that door.
I'm just here to make you pay your rent.
Yeah, the grouting's just shocking.
Pay your rent. Hello and welcome to I Spied. My name's Michelle Stevenson and I'm here with David Callan, and I know he wants to jump in on embassies because he's done some pretty deep research in his blanket fort.
Yep.
Yes, he lives a sad, sad life.
Well, actually, I was on a flight. I took 2 flights this week, very long flights, and while I was on them, I spent a lot of time using the Qantas Wi-Fi to go online and research embassies. But you know what? While I was doing that, I completely missed the big story.
Yeah, so the big story, which I think we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on it, is that one of Russia's far-right ideologues, Alexander Dugin, his daughter was assassinated with a car bomb.
Yeah.
And this has elements of everything that we talk about.
Professor Dugin is... Dugin, what a great name. G'day, my name's Dugin. Dugin is also known as Putin's brain.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And was a very strong proponent of them invading Ukraine.
Which is interesting because he's kind of like this neo-Nazi figure. He's very, very extremely right-wing. But he's, you know, the excuse they've used was, oh, well, Ukraine's being run by neo-Nazis. It's like, Dugin, excuse me, aren't they your people?
Yes.
But essentially his daughter's been whacked.
Yes. So Daria Dugin, 29-year-old daughter, she's also far right and she works on television and radio and is kind of a big proponent of all the things.
She's like the female she's a female Andrew Bolt of Russia.
Yeah, so she was herself a rising star in Russia's far-right community. She was also a familiar face on right-wing media and at far-right events. Now, what happened was she jumped in her dad's car. She was leaving an event and the car exploded.
Dad's car?
So, but this is where the dilemma is, right? So a lot of people thought they were meant to be leaving together. So either the bomb was intended just for him or for him and her, but they left in separate cars.
Yeah. So as soon as you said dad's car, because I didn't know that little detail, as soon as you said dad's car, that's like, ooh, now it's getting a bit creepy. Now, the interesting thing is because of the very quick bit of research when you sprung this on me without telling me.
Well, I just always assume that you're right across this stuff.
I can't be everywhere at once.
You were too busy getting deeply involved in embassies.
I was too busy looking at ball typewriters and how you can bug one. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But the thing that I didn't know was the fact that this seems to be, as you put it, there are rogue elements within the intelligence service that are supposedly meant to be doing this.
Yes. So what's come out of it is Ukraine were quick to say because everyone pointed their finger at the Ukraine secret service.
Of course. I mean, that's the logical thing is let's point at the guys we're fighting at the moment.
And Ukraine said, look, it has nothing to do with us. We are not like Russia. We are not terrorists. We would not be doing this. Right. Now, but there are people who have come out and said potentially it's part of Putin's kind of close security service who may have done this themselves because they're trying to get rid of Putin.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on around Putin and Ukraine at the moment because there's so many articles that are coming out now basically saying they're not going to win this, right? The Ukraine could look to win it. And now, what is it? Zelensky's come out and said, we're going to take back the Donbass and we're going to take back Crimea. Whether this is just bold rhetoric, which it probably is, but the interesting thing about this is this has not gone well for Vlad at all.
Not at all. And also, apparently, Vlad is kind of unraveling and people are seeing it. So a lot of people close to him are seeing this as an opportunity to kind of get rid of him. And one way to get rid of him is cut off the snake's head.
Yeah.
You'll get the snake.
Yeah, get rid of the brain. And the other thing is, the other way to gauge just where Putin is at the moment is how big is his furniture, right? I think he's probably got a couch that's about 30 meters long, and he sits at one end and the girl sits at the other, and he just flirts at a distance. The interesting thing about this is Putin's on a hiding to nothing at the moment because he's lost control of the Ukraine situation. That was meant to be a 5-minute war.
Oh,
and it's
100%.
Not. This has now become a quagmire.
Yep.
On top of that, Latvia are requesting the UN to declare Vladimir Putin and Russia a terrorist state.
Right.
They're trying to, so everything's going wrong. And the thing is, when everything starts going wrong, look at Scott Morrison, if it starts going tits up, everyone's going to start walking away from you. They're going to start turning on you. And the fact that there is the implication that the intelligence service, which is meant to be Vlad's baby, is turning on him, he's in trouble.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, though, Russia's Federal Security Service, FSB, which we talked about a lot, have claimed that it was actually an agent of Ukraine's Secret Service which had planted the bomb. They claim that they have pictures of this woman who arrived with her daughter and lived in the same building as Dugin's daughter, and she was actually following them and had planted this. Now, what's interesting is the FSB doesn't have a reputation for solving political killings quickly or telling the truth.
Well, funny that. Generally because they're the ones that killed them and they don't want that truth out there.
Yes.
The thing that's most interesting about this is there is one other option, is this guy's an asshole.
Oh, yes.
His daughter is an asshole.
Yes.
And someone's gone, I don't like assholes and I'm going to take them out. It could have been internal. It could have been an opposition, Russian opposition as well.
Right.
Not that they would do that. It's not the sort of way they play.
But there has been conversations about it being part of the Russian opposition within Russia. Like that they had planted this, that no one really liked Dugin.
Well, except Vlad. And you know what? I reckon even Vlad didn't like him, but he's obviously a smart guy. Until he went, no, we've got to take out the Ukraine.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, I'm looking at an article right now and it's got a photo of him and it's like, my God, you're a brain. But as they describe him, he is a very Rasputin-like character.
Yes.
So, and the whole thing with Rasputin was this ungodly sort of influence he had over Tsar Nicholas. It could be the same sort of thing. This is just somebody who has some sort of Svengali control of Putin.
Yes.
I wouldn't see it that much. The way I look at Putin's all about the money and the power, and he would just be like going, you're an oligarch who works for me and you're helping me out.
Yeah.
Problem is, at the moment, because it's like you've got Ukraine could be on the list, FSB could be on the list, Russian politics could be on the list, just some rando who doesn't like him could be on the list. It could turn out to be just a personal revenge plot. As we said in our podcast recently about assassination.
Yeah.
Good luck figuring this one out.
But FSB, for them, I think they really want to be quick to point the finger at Ukraine because then it gives Putin a little more ammunition to say, this is why we're invading them.
Oh, totally. I mean, the FSB, everyone's got a scapegoat in this one. This is the great thing.
100%.
Everyone can just shift the blame onto the next player and away we go. And the circle goes on. To me, this is something really worth watching over the next couple of months.
And I think we'll tap back into it because I think there's going to be a lot of fallout from this.
There will be a lot of fallout, but what's really interesting is watching how quickly or slowly the investigation unfolds.
They said the investigation went too quickly for the FSB.
Too quickly for the FSB.
Too quickly. They solved it within 2 days, which they said is really unheard of.
The FSB solved it in 2 days?
Yes.
Then they totally did it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's what they're saying. They've got pictures of the woman that they claim is Ukrainian and all of this stuff that they claim have pointing to this Ukrainian
Just have a T-shirt with Ukraine on.
Yeah. I'm a Ukrainian spy and I'm here to kill someone.
Yeah. Look, honest to God, this is one to watch. I really believe this is definitely going to be one to watch. Now, let's get on to the really exciting story.
I can't wait.
Embassies.
Please.
Right. So the Russians wanted to build a new embassy because, as someone described it, the Russian embassy in Canberra is the oldest and ugliest building in the place. They even did a refurbishment of it and everyone went, that really didn't help.
Is that because Russians just wanted to fit in with where they're from?
Well, no, probably, but also it's just a really old building. They've been there since the 50s.
But I also can't imagine Russia being on the precipice of architectural genius.
Yeah, that whole brutalist Bauhaus kind of style of, rendered concrete and nothing else with the rust pouring down the sides, definitely in. Now, interestingly enough, there seems to be two schools of architectural design. embassy design, either really amazing and very culturally appropriate,
Yep.
or just god awful.
Yep.
And to be perfectly honest, the other embassy in Canberra that just makes me go, why, is the Chinese embassy. And this all comes in. The Chinese embassy is a really good story, but when you drive past it, it's meant to look like the Forbidden City, but it just looks like a really bad Chinese takeaway. It's just like dude, it's yellow. Why yellow brick? And that's the other thing. The blonde bricks are the ones that they built the Russian embassy out of back in the sort of like 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is the Russians were building a new embassy, and they had prime real estate right next door to the US Embassy, which is on Adelaide Avenue. And you know, beautiful. I love the US Embassy. You used to drive past it and it was this great southern plantation mansion sitting on a hill with rolling green lawns. And now it's rolling green lawns into a tank trap and these massive walls because the security's gone up the wazoo.
Yeah.
But they had this beautiful spot that gave them a view of the US Embassy, a view of Parliament House, and a view of Black Mountain Tower. You know the telecom tower on...
Yeah.
Sorry, Telstra Tower.
I know. I grew up in Canberra, and Telecom, now Telstra Tower, is where we used to sit and drink as teenagers. But anyway.
You too?
Yeah.
Everyone did that.
Yeah.
That and that little peninsula just at the bottom of Black Mountain. You'd sit there at the lake and someone would always wind up in the water.
Yep.
So the whole thing is they were building this embassy. Now, a lot of people were really quite upset about this because they're like going, hang on, you're giving them direct line of sight of Parliament House, direct line of sight of the US Embassy, and direct line of sight of Telstra Tower.
Yeah.
And this could be a major problem with communications intercept because the Russians are incredibly good at this stuff.
It's weird that no one thought about that.
Yeah, but I think it might have also been that thing of we're all friends now.
Oh, right.
Because here's the thing. Are we? Well, we're not anymore.
No.
And the other thing was they were given the land, and there's a thing called the embassy pool.
Yeah.
And no, it's not where you all sit around wearing robes and drinking cocktails and speaking foreign languages. It's a pool of land that they can give to embassies because there's 327 foreign missions in Canberra. That's a lot of premises, right? So they have this pool of land that they can extend out to anyone. So what happened was they gave them the land 14 years ago, on the proviso that it would be built in 2 years.
Yep.
Turns out it wasn't built. They haven't done anything in there. Now, one of the things they did was they suddenly turned around and the Russians turned around and went, well, we can't build anything at the moment because we can't trust any Australian builders. It's got to be Russian builders.
Yep.
To which Foreign Affairs turned around and went, no, you're not bringing in all of your FSB guys to just live in a building site and spy on us.
Yeah.
But there is precedent for that. Because one of the things that happens when the Chinese drive-through takeaway and embassy was built just behind the British High Commission in Canberra, their old one was an old hotel out in Watson. Old motel, actually.
Yeah.
And look, it got bugged up the wazoo. There were holes in the walls everywhere where there were bugs. But essentially what happened was when they built this embassy in Yarralumla, ASIO worked out a plan to bug it. They literally lined the entire building with fibre optics.
Okay.
Right, the whole thing was lined with fibre optics. Now, interestingly enough, to me, it would have been something that ASIO would have kept hold of. And this was going on just as I was leaving the organisation. And I didn't know much about it. It was, need to know, it wasn't part of my wheelhouse. But one of the tech guys was really upset, like, we've got this great operation, but we're not going to get any further with it because we need 5 lampposts, telegraph poles, which I just went, just get 5. And we don't. And I went, what's the problem? We don't have the budget. And essentially what sounds like happened when you look at the history of this operation was suddenly the Americans got involved, the NSA got involved, and it went live. So what happened was this fibre optic network in the embassy was beaming information to a receiver in the back of the British High Commission, which is right next door, which was then being fed to the NSA at the US Embassy, and the NSA were looking at all this intelligence. The big problem with it was they wouldn't share it unless they thought we needed it.
Right.
So we put this thing together and then the Americans went, you can have a little bit. It's like, we did all the work.
I mean, that is very American.
Now, it also became very controversial because the whole thing about that was it turns out that, there were trade and economic intelligence that were coming through that we weren't getting. And there was that idea that the Americans are actually taking our stuff, like taking this intelligence and then using it to gazump us with trade deals with China.
Yeah.
Right. This all came out in 1995. It was all revealed. And in fact, not recently, but about 10 years ago, the Chinese actually went, yeah, they did it. All right. Now, interestingly enough, they regard this bugging of the Chinese embassy, that was the goad that led to the Chinese stealing the plans to the ASIO building. Right. The new ASIO, the Ben Chifley building in Canberra. Now, what happened was the plans were stolen. Now, everything was firewalled except the builder's computer.
Yes.
So they stole the blueprints off his computer. And then when they found out that the Chinese had it, the big problem with that was they realised that they've got the layout, not just the layout of the building, the layout of the wiring.
Which is not helpful.
So the reason why they couldn't use the building for the first 2 years of its existence, Kevin Rudd opened it, and then no one moved in for 2 years because they had to gut the building from the inside and rewire it.
I mean, this whole thing is hilarious. But getting back to the Russian plot of land, well, the plot of land in Canberra that's meant to be for the Russian embassy. Now, NCA, the National Capital Authority, has cancelled the lease because of its use it or lose it.
Yep.
And what I find interesting is now Ukraine is looking to
I
snap up
love
the plot
that.
of land.
Yeah, our revenge, you invade our country, we're going to invade your plot of land.
So the Ukrainian ambassador, who's currently here to look at defence supplies, says his government will formally apply for the Yarralummla site. And there is no sweeter irony than Ukraine applying for the site.
It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you look at this is the thing, who is going to build their embassy? Because the building of an embassy is a really, really important thing. When Petrov defected, the Russians, at the time, the Soviets, pulled out their diplomatic mission.
Yep.
No consular services, no ambassador.
Yep.
Right, they pulled them all out.
Yep.
While they were pulled out, Australian intelligence, ASIO, went into the premises and they realised this is one room where they would discuss everything. So they wired it. They bugged that room up the wazoo.
Yep.
It was totally wired. You couldn't fart in there without them knowing about it. And, who wants to know that?
Yeah.
When the Russians came back, I think it was about 2 or 3 years later, they switched it on, right? They went, right, if we're live, boom. Not one word was ever spoken in that room. Not one word. The Russians would have gone, mate, they must have wired this place.
Yeah.
They would have had a separate room for it that wasn't wired.
So it's all these games keep getting played, and to what end?
To what end is intelligence? And this is my favourite. When I said I got right into the...
Oh my God, I can't wait for you to deep dive on whatever it is you're going to deep dive on.
The inner workings of an IBM Ball typewriter. Right. Now,
when I say deep dive, people, he literally goes deep.
I've taken apart a typewriter this week just to see how it works. Right? You go, oh, that bit. Oh, that one there. Oh, okay. Right. So
some people have lives.
And some people have a life and have time to read. And thank you, Salty T-Dog, Loop Disconnect, and everybody else on our Twitter feed at iSpy Podcast who keep sending me reports to read.
I love it. I love it.
Literally, I just get, here's 127 pages on the Chinese embassy. Read it now. Oh, God, okay, I will. The American embassy in Moscow is a really, really great benchmark. All right. Now, we've talked about how they bugged the place and they put walls slightly out of alignment with too much reinforced concrete, beaming microwaves in and all that sort of stuff.
And we've talked about how windows have fallen out.
Oh, all that stuff.
Yep.
Now, here's the great one. There were two really good cases, right? One is the Great Seal. The Russians, back I think it was in the 70s, or maybe the 60s, presented the US ambassador with a beautifully carved seal, the American seal.
Yep.
The eagle and the claws and all that sort of,
Yep.
this beautiful wooden seal. They presented it to him and he loved it so much he hung it up in his office. It was bugged.
Yeah, of
it
course.
had a massive bug in the back of
I
it.
mean, it's like everything that you're given is a Trojan horse. Why do you not understand this?
Did you think to check this? Did you think to just...
I don't understand. Just give it a quick sweep.
Yeah,
you have the technology.
But here's the interesting thing. If it's a remote device, you can switch it on and off, right? One of the things that's really interesting at the moment now is basically with the SIM card technology now, you can create a bug that's really, really tiny and you can switch on and off remotely. You literally...
Amazing.
You phone it, it starts, you switch it
Yeah.
off. Now, here's the great one. The Americans were sort of digging around in their embassy and they found a chimney, a hidden chimney.
Okay.
Oh, what's in here? And they opened the chimney and they found an antenna in it.
Okay.
That could be remotely lifted out of the chimney.
Oh my God, this is like something out of Get Smart.
Oh no, it gets better. It gets so much.
Do they talk into shoes as well? What's going on here?
This gets so much deeper.
Yeah.
Right. And then it can lift up and drop down. And
Yeah.
it was a very specific radio frequency that it would pick up. It's very high frequency
Yeah.
radio traffic. Right. So there's this aerial. And well, what's this doing here? And eventually the NSA went, we're going to take every piece of electrical equipment out of the embassy and send it back to America to be scanned. So they did. They literally took everything that ran on electricity out of the building while bringing replacement pieces for everything back, right?
Yep.
And this NSA tech went through all the all their equipment and found an IBM Ball typewriter. One of those typewriters back in the day, it had a little ball instead of lots of keys. It had a little ball that would jump around.
Okay.
He had a look at that. he found that there's an aluminium rod that supports the frame of the thing. He took that out and he was like, what's going on here? This is really, it looks right, but there's something wrong. Takes it out, opens, he finds that it's not a solid bar of aluminium anymore. It's got a circuit board inside it.
Right.
The springs that attach to that are actually conductive springs that are taking a low power battery, like charge from a battery that is hidden in the electrics of the phone, sending it up to that. Now, what would happen was this thing would record every keystroke on that typewriter.
Yeah.
Right. So every time.
Oh my God, that is clever.
Right. Now it gets better. Then what happens was it would go, it would record it all into that chip, into that circuit board. That circuit board, at a given time, the television station in Moscow would send a signal out, a carrier wave, their normal carrier frequency. The carrier frequency for the transmitter in the typewriter was the same wavelength. So you would not detect it. As soon as you switched it on, you couldn't detect it because there was a carrier wave going on. That carrier wave would send to the antenna in the chimney, which had been raised, and it would beam it across the street to Our Lady of Telemetry, the church that basically the KGB had used as the listening post.
That is so crazy.
It was just, and the great thing is the NSA tech basically turned around and said, at that moment, when he finally pulled this thing apart and realised the intricacy of this bug, so intricate, he just went, I have nothing but respect for these guys to have gone that far and gotten that deep.
And how have we not solved existential crises like
the common cold?
You know, like if they could do that, imagine what they could actually do if they put their powers for good.
Hey, Mr. Engineer, you want to do something about renewable power?
Yeah.
Too busy playing with typewriters in my blanket fort.
I'm like, imagine if we solved, I don't know, the climate crisis.
Yeah, it could be done. It wouldn't take that long, would it?
But too busy doing this.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I mean, the information you get, now I'm not sure whose typewriter it was.
I don't know, but I love this story.
But I'm going to guarantee it's going to be someone, either it's going to be the station, the CIA station chief secretary's typewriter or the ambassador secretary's typewriter. Right, it's going to be someone important. So this is the thing that I always find really exciting about these stories is the amount of technology and the amount of engineering and the amount of just rat cunning.
Yeah.
The other one was when the Americans, we talk about how the Americans got the Russians to build their embassy and then it just became a listening post.
This is my favourite.
What I didn't know about this was the head of the KGB called the US ambassador into his office. He went, I want a meeting with you. And the US ambassador was like, are you crazy? He went, we are going to have a meeting. We will have a meeting. You will be here.
Yeah.
Right? So he shows up and sitting on the desk of the head of the KGB are a series of different listening devices, some of which is technology that the ambassadors went, it really was space age tech. We had no idea. And the head of the KGB went, well, what do you think? And he went, very impressive, sir. And he went, they're all through your embassy. And he went, what? And he went, these are the bugs we have placed in your embassy. Good luck. It was literally, that's how absolutely convinced they had the Americans absolutely bamboozled, that they went, that's in your walls. Good luck.
Okay, I don't understand why.
Why? Because it basically meant the Americans would spend the next year tearing that building down. See, now it cost them...
These are like games that they're playing with each other.
It's called the Great Game for a reason.
Right.
The other thing was, you're so busy tearing your building apart.
You're not noticing the other stuff that's going on around you.
Your operations are falling apart. Right. And it also means, I mean, the classic was when a US diplomat would leave the embassy compound in Moscow, they would literally say to the Russian guard, just tell the KGB I'm going down to the shops to buy some milk. Right?
Yeah.
Or I can remember one point where a diplomat who was trying to get somewhere stopped the car, and when the other car pulled up behind him, he basically got in his car, got out of the car, walked up to the other car, knocked on the window, and the guy wound it down. And he went, look, you're following me, but I don't know where I'm going, so can I follow you? And the KGB guy went, yeah, sure, fine, and guided him to where he wanted to be.
See, I love these stories. I think these stories are great.
See, this is the thing that I always found really interesting was...
Do you think they become friends? Like even though they're working on the opposite side, like if they spend a lot of time doing stuff like this?
I honestly believe there is some form of Stockholm syndrome. I mean, there's that classic thing where, you as a soldier, you're taught to hate.
Yeah.
Right? You're taught to hate the enemy. But, of course, there's all those wonderful stories where people caught in the same trench or in a minefield or, the two opposing soldiers stuck in a shell hole. In
like,
no
why are
man's
we
land.
doing this?
Why are we doing this? I have a family, you have a family.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. We're basically people. I think in the intelligence world, man, I want to beat you. But it's like football players as well. I want to beat you, and you know what? When we're on the ground, you're dead meat to me.
Yeah.
But as soon as the game's over, let's go have a beer.
Yeah.
And I think I would guarantee there's a lot of that. But the thing is with embassies, that's the football pitch.
Yes.
That's where you're playing the game.
It is.
And, I mean, the fascinating stuff about it is the game is getting weirder and weirder. I mean, we've now got the thing with Havana syndrome, which, and we have it, we may be able to talk to somebody who suffers from Havana syndrome.
I'm excited if we can make this happen.
It's going to take a while, but
It will.
We'll get this guy. He's a ex-American intelligence officer who may be suffering from Havana syndrome. But that's basically, they can't even figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Because some are saying it's microwave technology, some are saying it's LRAP. Someone said it's probably a cricket.
Yeah.
Because there's this sound that occurs and then you start to feel sick. You have sleep problems,
It's
anxiety.
crazy.
It's crazy, but
Yep.
no one can actually identify what this thing is.
Yep.
And also, the thing that I find really fascinating about it is, these people talk about how, I was in a hotel room or I was at home and this has happened to me, but no one else in the house is affected.
Yes.
Right. So it's like, it's a really directional attack, whatever it is, if it is an attack at all, or it's just a lot of people with hypochondria. But this is the really interesting thing is they're trying to figure out more and more ways of compromising your premises because that's where the secrets are.
Yes.
Right?
And I think, we'll definitely, hopefully if we get this guest on, because due to the syndrome, it's very specific about how we can hook up with this person. But we
can't shout at him or it'll just freak him out.
We can't talk to each other. No, so we'll definitely try and tap into that a little more when and if we get this guest.
Yeah.
But back onto Embassies, what do you think is going to happen in Canberra?
Well, it's going to go back to the pool. Right now, and the interesting thing is the Russians can reapply. They can literally say, "Look, we're really sorry about that. This war started, and I'm sorry."
Yeah.
Let's be honest. They are quite distracted at the moment. But the problem is,
so was Ukraine, and they had plenty of opportunity to put their hand up. So
they had 14 years to get this done.
It's the use it or lose it.
It's use it or lose it.
I love that that's what it's called.
I do like the fact that that's literally, how Australian.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, use it or lose it, mate.
Yeah.
The thing is, I can't see them giving it back to the Russians.
No.
I don't know if they give it to the Ukrainians either.
No, because they don't really want to piss off Russia. They don't like Russia, but they don't want to piss them off.
I don't think it's even a case of that. It's just this is prime real estate. There are probably more worthy candidates in the world for this. When I think about where all the embassies are, like the Japanese embassy looks like a Japanese garden and the Thai embassy looks like a Thai longhouse and where the Italian embassy looks like some piece of brutal... It actually looks like a primary school.
Concrete?
Yeah, it's concrete. It looks like it's right next to a school on Yarra Glen, and you look at it, Adelaide Avenue, you look at it and go, I want something more Italian.
No, every Italian home I know in Sydney is just a concrete. It's just concrete and iron bars. That's it.
I really want it to look like Florence because to me, that's my jam. Florence is my jam.
Okay.
I walked into Florence and I was there for 5 minutes and I looked at my wife and she went, "Yes, David, when the boys leave home, we can live here for a little while." Oh, thanks, Mum. Right. So I think they would probably be looking at a more worthy candidate. The interesting thing is that at the moment, the Chinese have been building an annex onto their
because they need more
embassy.
space.
They need more space. Well, they're growing. And also they want to take the Taiwanese embassy. No, that's Taiwan does not have a diplomatic mission.
No.
Right. Now, the whole thing is they've been building their new annex and because of what happened when they built the new embassy, basically they've said, no, we're going to bring in our own workers.
Right.
What's been exposed is somebody flew a drone over it and shot down, and now the Chinese are being held up for occupational health and safety breaches and also treatment of their workers.
Because they're probably living on
the building site. Yeah. And like the classic was there was like a 2.5 metre deep trench and guys just in there with shovels digging, no helmets, no high vis and no safety at all.
Oh no. Have you been to China? That's not how they do things.
Exactly. So it's like that, but again, it comes down to that thing, and if you listen to our little bite size about embassies, the fact that it is kind of sovereign soil.
Yes.
But you still have to abide by the laws of the country you're in.
So Russia out.
Right, I reckon Russia's gone.
It could be a good opportunity to kind of bridge a few things with China?
Yeah, but they've got their where they are. They don't want to. They wouldn't want to move. And
okay.
I mean, they've spent a lot of time making McNoodles look great. That's what I call it. I call it McNoodles, and everyone just goes, "You're so racist and horrible." I'm like, but it looks like a restaurant. It looks like a Chinese restaurant chain.
Yeah.
Right. I apologise if there's someone out there that spent a lot of time designing it, but it just felt like someone took a government house and slapped a Chinese roof on top of it. That's my opinion. Don't at me or at me.
No, please add him. So anyway, that's a good thing to watch, I think. Keep an eye out on like who's going to take this lease over.
Yeah, I'm going to run a sweepstake on it, and the winner will get an I Spied podcast.
I reckon
holder.
it's Salty Dog or whatever his name is.
He'll know it. One of those guys.
It's going to be right up his alley.
Yeah, right up his alley. So that is basically it, guys. With Embassies, if you work in one, get ready to be absolutely scrutinised by everybody living outside it.
Yes.
Oh, and one more thing. A typically Australian thing. A kangaroo tried to break into the Russian embassy.
Oh, yes. That was great.
Saw that and went.
I know.
I can't talk about that. Yeah, I've got to mention it.
Yeah.
Bless. Skippy was gone.
Kept trying to get in, but, did not.
Yeah, because there was a lovely Russian rat. Come, be my friend. All right, you look a bit cute.